Hello, Peter.
Okay. Shavua Tov. Sorry about last week. I had to rush off, so we didn't have a shiur. So we're back in Shmuel Aleph, and this will be familiar to you, this chapter. We're on chapter 29. Let me share the screen straight away. There you go. So the reason it'll be familiar to you is because we've done it before. And we did it before we did chapter 28. And the reason for that is because 29 follows on from 27. And 28 was a subplot. It was a digression from the story. And it's important that it was there. And we'll see later on this morning why it was important that it was there. But it was an interruption to the story. So just to give us an idea, to take us back, let's go back to 27 and just have a quick look at 27, which leads into 29. So David was still running away from Shaul, and off he went to Gat, which of course is one of the stronghold cities of the Philistine. And he goes to Achish, who is seems to be one of the leaders of Philistine, but we'll see in our chapter of 29 that he's not actually the complete boss of the Philistine. He's not the king of all the Philistine. He's one of the knackers, but he isn't the main knacker, it would seem. But we don't know that at the moment in 27. In 27, David goes to Achish to escape, there's that word there, to escape from Shaul. Now, even at this point, we know Achish already, don't we? Where do we know Achish from before this chapter of 27?
David went to him before when he was running away from Shaul, and Achish was suspicious, so David acted like a madman, and he sent him away. He escaped Achish.
That's absolutely right. What happened was David was running away from Shaul previously, and he went to try and take refuge in Gat, thinking my enemy's enemy is my friend. And what happened was actually Achish never actually got to say much, because the men of Gat recognized David and wanted to kill him. David then acted like a meshugana, started drooling at the mouth and rolling around on the floor. Does anybody remember what Achish said at that time?
Take him away. I don't need people like this.
Yeah, he said, what have you brought me this meshugana for? I've got enough of those already. I don't need any more. Get rid of him. They wanted to kill him. The men wanted to kill him. Achish would not let them kill him. And he just sent him away. So we can see from that first story that Achish is not a cruel man. He's also a little bit naive, isn't he? Because the men of Gat were not impressed with David or his antics pretending to be a meshugana. But Achish buys into it and says, I don't need a meshugana, get rid of him. Send him away. So just bear that in mind, that we've met Achish before, and his personality seems to be one of a little bit naive and not particularly bloodthirsty in the previous story anyway. So that was the very first time we met Achish. Now in 27, David goes to Achish, and this time he's got with him 600 men, and he presents himself basically as a mercenary who is willing to fight on behalf of Achish of Gat. And he dwells there. He lives in Gat. And David says to Achish, let me go to this place, give me a place to live. And he gives him this place called Ziklag. And then this is the important bit here that we learned in 27. David and his men would go up and raid the Geshurites and the Gizurites and the Amalekites, who were in the south of where they were. And he would go and he would bring all the spoil to Achish. But he didn't leave anybody alive. Why didn't he leave anybody alive? It wasn't the dumb thing to kill the women. Why did he kill the women and the children?
He didn't want them to find out that he hasn't raided the Jews, the Israelis.
Yes, that's right. That's right. He raided the south, but what he did was, in verse 10 here on the screen, Achish would say, "Oh, hello, David. Where have you been marauding today?" And David said, "Oh, I've been going north to the south of Yehudah, and I've been going south into all these other places as well." But he says that he had attacked Yehudah. Of course, he was from Yehudah, so he was in fact attacking his own people, according to David, what David told Achish. And verse 11, David will leave alive neither man nor woman to bring to Gat, saying, lest they tell about us, saying, so has David done, and so his manner all of the days. So Achish, again, displays his naivety. And verse 12, Achish believed David, saying, he has greatly abhorred his people Israel, and he will be to me a bondsman forever. Achish believed David that he had abandoned his own people and was a traitor to Israel. And that's very important. Now,
I have a question.
Go on.
Two, actually. One is, in ancient times, wasn't there some superstitions about killing mad people? I mean, people didn't have it all with it. Number one. And number two is, didn't Achish recognize David as the person who came to him and pretended that he was mad?
Clearly not. Clearly not.
Okay.
Because if he had, then A, would be told about it, and B, his people would have spotted him again. But they did know he was David later on, at least, as we'll see now in our chapter. So 27 ends with Achish believing that David has abandoned his people and has joined the fight with Gat. That's where we ended 27. We then went into 28, which, as I said, was a side story of the Witch of Endor, which we spoke about. And now, in chapter 29, we literally carry on from the end of 27. So 28 is just a separate story that was inserted in between 27 and 29. And you'll see later on why the author of Shmuel Aleph put in the story of the Witch of Endor at this point. But at the moment, it doesn't seem obvious, because 29 continues seamlessly on from 27. So 27 ends with David having convinced Achish that he is now loyal to Achish and disloyal to Israel. And now we come to our chapter 29. It's a short chapter, and as I said, you'll recognize it because we've done it before we did 28. So, Vayikbetzu Plishtim et kol machanehem Afeka. And the Plishtim gathered all their camps to Afek. Okay, Afek. V'Yisrael chonim ba'ayin asher b'Yisrael. And the Israelites were camped in the Jezreel Valley. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, I don't expect you to remember this, so I'm not fair even to ask you. So I'm going to show you straight away. In chapter 28, at the beginning, verse 4, Vayikbetu Plishtim vayavo vayachanu b'Shunem. They gathered and they camped in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel and they camped in Gilboa. Right? And now in our chapter, we've got two different places. We've got Aphek and the Jezreel Valley. So the two different places here, and the Tanakh is not clear as to what's going on. Let's have a look at where these places are, first of all. Aphek is Tel Aphek, down here near Cholon, okay, not far from Ra'anana and Herzliya. See that? That's where Aphek is. It's not entirely clear that that's the truth, because...
Wait a second. Gilboa and Israel are one next to the other.
Okay, well, we're not going to get... Wait. Hang on. Aphek is down here. Now, Aphek is mentioned 4 times in Tanakh. This Aphek is the most northern one. This is Sulam, is Shunem. Okay, so Shunem is up here, parallel due east of Zichron Yaakov, due south of Nazareth. There it is, a village called Sulam at the bottom of close to can't remember exactly which mountain, but there it is anyway. So it's 82 kilometers from the northernmost Aphek that we know about. So there's a problem there. Those two places where the Plishtim were said to be in Shunem in chapter 28, and in chapter 29 they're said to be at Aphek. So that's a problem. Now let's have a look at the other one. Let's have a look at where the Israelites were. They were in the Jezreel Valley. Now the Jezreel Valley, I just home in there, is quite close to Shunem. It's 5.6 kilometers from Shunem. So we can assume that when it says they were in Aphek, they must have originally been in Aphek, but must have gone to Shunem to face off against the Israelites, because the Israelites were either in the Jezreel Valley or were in Gilboa, which is close by. So this is often how you see the camps. They face off against one another with a valley. We saw it very, very clearly, didn't we, in the story of David and Goliath, where at Tel Azakah, you can actually go and see it today. We've been a couple of times on our Tiyulim. If you go to Tel Azakah, you can see the valley that they actually happened in. And the Israelites were on one side and the Philistine were on the other. And it's the same here. This is where this took place. So the Aphek, where it says they were Aphek, this was a stopping place, because remember, the Philistine, where do they belong? They belong down here, don't they? Gaza, Gat, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Lachish, all this is Plishti area right down here. So the question we've got to ask is, what are they doing all the way up here in the Jezreel Valley, which, as you can see, is really very much north of all that way they've gone. They were right practically the whole way of the country, which seems to indicate that at this point, the Philistines were seriously in ascendancy, because they'd managed to get their camp all the way up to Shunem without being destroyed. Now, that's a very significant point, because they are way out of their home territory. When they were fighting down here and they were fighting over here at Hebron, well, okay, that's one thing. There's Kiryat Gat, there's Hebron. But we seem to be all the way up here for this battle, which is not all the way up there in Aleppo. No, that's far too far. And not Damascus either. Up here, there we go. That's where we seem to be, up in the north. So it's just an interesting geographical point here, that the Philistines are way out of Philistine country here. Right, so let's carry on in the chapter.
Have you got the Steinsaltz Tanakh there, Johnny?
I have it in here. I can open it.
Because there's a map on the next page showing you all the armies and where they are.
Okay, that's good. What page is it, Johnny?
On 338.
338. Okay. 338. Okay, there's a nice map. Let me see if I can hold it up for you and you'll be able to see it for a second. I'll need to just take off the what do we call it? Just need to stop the screen share and take off the virtual background for a minute and show you this map. No, there we go.
Yeah.
So that is the map there of the journey that I've just described to you. You can see how far north they've gone to have this battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Johnny. Interesting map. Let's put everything back the way it was. And let's go back to the share screen. Right, there we go. So that's where they camped. They were up in the north. And so what happened here was the Sarnei Plishtim Ovrim Lemeyot Vela Alafim. Just have a little think about this word here. Ovrim. What does that mean? Ovrim. Barbara?
Passover. Crossed over.
Passed over, yeah. They were passing along. They were going along. Lemeyot v'lalafim. There's a lot of them, hundreds and thousands of them. Okay, there's a huge army going up from the north here. But this word Ovrim is interesting, as you will see in a minute. David v'anashav, and David and his men, Ovrim ba'achrona im Achish. Now, it seems that Achish was of the Philistine army, and David was with him at the back. So you picture this huge army swarming up the from the south to the north of the country via that route that I just showed you and that's in the map that Johnny pointed out. And at the back of this army is Achish of Gat with David with him. Now, remember what happened the very first time David went to Achish? Who was it that said, we need to kill him? It was the Plishti soldiers, not Achish, right? The Plishti soldiers. Same thing happens here. Look at this. Verse 3. Vayomru sarei Plishtim. And the officers, the princes, the ministers of the Plishtim, the top guys, they said, Ma ha'ivrim ha'ela. What are these Hebrews doing there? Can you see the connection here? Ovrim and Ivrim. It's a play on words. Over here, this word Ovrim, we didn't know it until verse 3, but it's a play on words because it's an unusual word to say they were passing. You could have just said that they were traveling up the north. They were going up to, but they used that word. And this word here, Ha'ivrim, means Hebrews. Okay? Vayomru sarei Plishtim, ma ha'ivrim ha'ela. What are these Hebrews doing here? Now, what is that word Ivrim? How is it being used in this context?
It's an adjective.
No.
Yes, it's adjective. Well, is it? No, I think it's a noun.
Noun, actually. It's a noun.
It's a noun, yeah. But in what context is it being used? How is it being said?
Jews.
Disparaging.
Not
Disparaging. Disparaging.
right.
Yeah, not just
Blind.
Jews, Johnny.
Yes.
Those Jews. It's
Dirty
those
Jews.
Yeah.
Dirty Jews, right? Ivrim, it's a term, it's a derogatory
Jew
term.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't it mean the blind also, Johnny?
No, that's with a vav. That's
Oh.
with a vav.
Ah, it's with a vav. Yeah.
So it's a derogatory term for Jews, Ivrim. It's often used, if you look in Tanakh, it's often used as not always, but it's often used as a derogatory term. And here it is clearly used as a derogatory term. What is its meaning? And why is it used as a derogatory term? Avraham Avinu is called Ha'ivri.
Ivri, yeah.
Why is he called that in the first place? Why are we called Hebrews? It's a very apt term for us lot.
Because he crossed over
To the other side.
Crossed over from Babylon, was it Babylon?
Yes,
Into
correct.
Israel.
Correct. On a physical point of view, he came from Aver HaNahar. He came over the river. Which river?
The Jordan.
No, the Euphrates. Yes, the Euphrates. He came from over the other side of the Euphrates. But we're told, Rashi tells us very clearly that actually he was somebody who was opposed to everybody else in philosophy. He was the one that was promoting a monotheistic society,
one God.
at which time it was really, the whole world was in a polytheistic society with many gods. So he was, as it were, standing in opposition to everybody else in the world. And that, in some ways, was a term of endearment. When it's used and in that context of Ish Ivri, Rashi there uses it as a term of endearment. But often, as is often the case, the Goyim use our terms of endearment to mean something completely opposite. And here, Ivrim has the connotation of being against us on the other side. They don't believe, and actually they were quite right not to believe. Achish was being super naive here. The officers of the Philistine did not believe that David had crossed over from being loyal to the Israelites to being loyal to the Philistine. As far as they were concerned, he was still an Ivri. He was still a Hebrew. He was still on the other side. They didn't trust him. So what do they say? They say, Maha Ivri Ma'ela. What are these dirty Jews doing here? Get rid of them. Vayoma Achish el Sarei Plishtim. And Achish says to the officers of the Plishtim, who, and this proves what we said earlier on, that by this time at least, they certainly knew it was David because he says so. Hello, Zed David. Is this not David? The very same David, Eved Shaul Melech Israel, who was a servant of Shaul, the king of Israel. But look, Asher Haya Iti, Ze Yamim or Ze Shanim. He's been with me a long time. He's been with me days, years he's been with me. Velo matzati bo me'uma. I've not found any fault with him. Me'uma means a fault. I've not found any problem with him. He's been as good as gold. Miyom naflo ad hayom hazeh. Now, translated here as from the day he fell, brackets, in with me. Naflo, clearly from the word lipol, to fall, yeah? We know that word. Noflim al panav, noflim al pnei, and we fall on our faces. Noflim means to fall. But there's another context here of this word. Anybody, well, let's see what Steinsaltz, how does Steinsaltz translate this word? What verse are we in? 3. Since the day he encamped with me, he says. Okay, he says encamped with me, which is not a literal translation at all. But there are places where this naflo means something else. Anybody have any ideas as to what this word naflo means in other places? And I'll show you them in a moment. Just trying to find them again. I've got them ready, but I can't remember which one's which.
When Moses and Aaron pray, they fall on their faces.
Yes, they fall on their faces. That's right. We've said that. Divrei hayamim. Okay, right. Anyone? What's the meaning of naflo often? Remember, we're talking here about soldiers. Let me show you.
And they fall in battle.
To commit
Yes.
suicide.
That's true. But not commit suicide, no, but fall in battle, it is true. We do say that. We say currently there are, unfortunately, too many soldiers who are noflim b'milchama, who are falling. But there's another description. I'll just turn that off. And that is in Divrei Hayamim. I'm going to show you. You know what Divrei Hayamim is? It's translated in English as Chronicles. What is Divrei Hayamim?
It's a genealogical history of what went on.
Yeah, not just genealogical. It is basically it's a history of what went on. It's a summary. It's the last two books of Tanakh, and it is a summary of all the stories in Tanakh. Have a look over here in verse 20. It says here, this is our story. This is our story. This is the summary of our story. Belechto el Tziklag, when he went to Tziklag, that was David, we know about that. Naflu alav mi Menashe. Many people of Menashe defected to him. That's the word naflu means to defect from one side to the other. Yeah, we were used to that in the Cold War, weren't we? I remember growing up as a teenager, reading about people who defected from the East. I didn't really know what it meant initially when I was younger. I didn't understand the concept of sides here in the East and the West, but that's what it meant. We were always reading about these famous people who defected to the West, and it was always seemed to be a reason for pleasure, as it were. Okay, so he went to Ziklag, and the sons of Manasseh defected to him. So let's go back to our chapter here. So what he's saying here is Achish is stressing the idea that David has defected from Shaul. From the day, look, he was the servant of Shaul, and from the day that he defected to me until this day, I've found no fault with him. Achish is defending David. He's defending David and saying that he should have he should be allowed to be with them. The officers of the Philistine want to get rid of him, and Achish is trying to defend him, but he defends him unsuccessfully. The officers of the Philistine are not having him. And the officers of the Philistines become angry. They become angry with him. With who? With Achish. And they say to him, Hashev et Achish, v'yashov el makomo. Send him away. Return him to his place. We don't want him with us. V'lo yered imanu. And he will not come down with us into this battle, b'milchama. Why does it say lo yered imanu? He shall not go down into battle.
Going south.
No, they're going north.
But they're in the valley.
Yes, they're in the valley. The battles always take place in the valley. The camps are on the hills because they're strongholds, and then they come down into the valley and they clash down there. So yeah, They will not come down into the valley with us to the war. V'lo yeh lanu l'satan, and they will not be for us a Satan. What's a Satan?
Devil.
The devil. Satan is a devil, yes. Here it's translated here as an adversary. Steinsaltz says an adversary or a stumbling block. So we know the meaning of Satan. A Satan is the devil, and they're describing David as a Satan. Not a nice thing to call somebody, right? Satan. What kind of being is the Satan? Is he a man?
Supernatural.
He's a supernatural being. Okay. What kind of supernatural being?
Negative.
A what, Hannah?
Negative.
A negative one. That is true.
Wasn't she an angel, a mother?
An angel. That's the word I was trying to schlep out of you. Yes.
Johnny, he could be an angel. Johnny, he could be an angel because the devil is an angel also.
Yeah, Avril just said that, Philip.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're both right. An angel. The Satan is a type of angel. Just bear that in mind. Okay, let's carry on. So the men say, no, we're not having this guy. He's a Satan. Uvame yitratze ze el adonav. Halo barashe anashimein. Uvame yitratze. What does that mean? Rotze. Yeah, marutza means to be pleased with or to appease. Yitratze, it's a reflexive form. It's same root as the word rotze, to want. Yeah, you know that word, ani rotze, or if you're a woman, ani rotze. So yitratze means to ingratiate yourself, right? V'ameh yitratze ze el adanav. I'm worried, say these people, these Philistine princes, I'm worried that he's going to ingratiate himself with his master. Who is his master?
Shaul.
Shaul. They don't trust him. They don't trust David. They think that he is being a fifth column, right? He's being a fifth column. They are
a spy. Yeah.
They think that he is trying to infiltrate himself into the Philistine camp in order that he should be a snare for them, and he should have information for Shaul, and they're worried that at the end of the day, he's not what he cracks himself up to be, which is loyal to Achish. And then you have a little bit of psychological language here, and it says, "Halo barashei ha'anashim haheim." Is it not with the heads of those men? And what does that mean? What does it mean? Is it not with the heads of those men? This is what they're saying is we're worried that they will chop our heads off. It will be on our heads, but it says on their heads, and it's one of those times where they don't want to say the bad thing that might happen. It's almost like ayin hara. What they're saying is what he should have said. Halo barashenu, but halo barashenu. It'll be on our heads. If we do this, it'll be our heads that will be for the block. But they don't want to say that because it's almost like al tiftach pe le
Satan.
Satan. Okay, and we just said about the Satan, haven't we? So they don't want to open their mouths to the Satan. We see that very clearly in Parashat Shemot. Where do we see it in Parashat Shemot? We see it with Paro. Paro says to his men, Havanit chakmalo, let's get clever with these Jews because we're worried that they will join up with our enemies. They're getting too strong for us, these Jews in Egypt. They'll join up with our enemies, va'alu min haaretz, and they will go up from the land. What he really meant was they'll kick us out of our land. But he didn't want to say that, and so he said it in a different way. It's the same thing here. So these people here are worried that David is going to be a fifth column, and at the end of the day, they will be the ones that suffer, and it will be on their heads. But they've not yet finished. And they say, just to actually rub in the point and to stress it even more, verse 5, Halo ze David. Look at that expression. Is this not the same David? Halo ze David. Where have you heard that expression before? Yes, Barbara, further up. Exactly the same words. Halo ze David. Achish says, is this not the same David who's so loyal to me? And these guys are saying, don't be so naive, you fool. Halo ze David. I'll tell you what kind of David this is. This is the David that the women all came out with their musical instruments singing. Hika Shaul ba'alafav b'David
Rivotav.
And Saul has slain his thousands, and David has slain his 10,000. And 10,000 of what?
Us.
10,000 of Philistine.
Yeah,
Philistine.
Yeah. So they're saying, they're using that expression, Halo ze David, to Achish back in his face. They're throwing the same expression back in his face and saying, don't be such a fool, Achish. You're a naive fool. This is the same David who slaughtered us in our 10,000s. What makes you think that he is going to change his ways? You know, a leopard don't change his spots. Don't be so foolish. We're certainly not having him going into battle with us against his own people. And so Achish has to give in, actually. It shows you that Achish was not such a biggest knacker, or else he would have been able to overrule the Sarei Plishtim. But he can't overrule the Sarei Plishtim, and so he has to say to David, sorry, mate, you're out. Verse 6, Vayikra Achish el David. Achish calls David, Vayomer elav, and he says to him, a very interesting expression, Chai Hashem. What does that mean?
As the Lord lives, yeah.
As the Lord lives. What is that expression?
Truth be it. Truth be it.
What? Say that again, Johnny. You're muted.
It's an oath. It's an oath.
It's an oath. It's an oath. It's an oath by the name of Hashem. Well, that's a bit strange, is it not? He's not a Jew. Why would he swear on the name of Hashem? You could say Chai, whatever his God is. Who was the god, Plishti god? Anybody remember who the Plishti god was?
Baal?
No, that was a Canaanite god.
Dagon.
Dagon, yes, Dagon. Correct. How do you know that, Barbara? Where do you know that from?
Don't remember.
Shimshon.
Shimshon, well done. See, the Westbrooks between them. They got it between them. Good partnership there. Yes, Dagon. Dagon was the Plishti god. We learned that in the story of Shimshon. So why didn't he say Chai Dagon?
Testing, David.
Well, I think he's yeah, and according to the Koren, Tanakh here that I've got, it was not uncommon for people to swear on other people's gods to give some kind of strength to what they're saying. I'll read you what it says. It says, at first glance, it seems strange that a Philistine would swear in God's name. Although Achish may have used the name of God simply to impress David with his sincerity, it is not at all unusual for a polytheist to be willing to swear in the name of another person's God. Polytheistic systems were open to adding other gods and to acknowledging someone else's deity as having power. Thus, there was no concept of orthodoxy, dogmatism, or intolerance towards the beliefs of others that would preclude swearing in the name of another person's God, either as a simple courtesy or as a genuine recognition of that God's influence in worldly affairs. Now, that is a very, very important little thing that I've read out there from the Koran. I don't know if you realize how important that is. Because what that little shtickle has just taught us is that in the society that was prevalent in those days, it was perfectly acceptable to have your own God and to believe in other people's gods as well. You might think your God's better than his God, you know, my daddy's stronger than your daddy kind of thing. But it was acceptable to believe that other gods had power. It wasn't an all or nothing. And that was the chidush. That was the novel part of the faith of the Abraham descendants. Avraham Avinu was the first to say no. Well, he wasn't the first to say, but, well, he probably was the first to say this bit, actually. The first to say, there is only one God. Not that our God is the most powerful, but there is only one God. Now, if you look at the Ten Commandments, right, what do we start with? Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God who took you out of Egypt. You shall have no other gods than me. Okay? Why would we need to say such a thing? Why would we even imagine that we would have other gods as well as him? Surely it's either him, her, or somebody else.
In the Shema, it says, don't honor other gods. In the second part of the Shema.
It says also in the very first line of the Shema, Hashem Echad. Yeah. God is the only one. This was the
second one. It said, don't bow down to other gods.
That's it. Yeah, it says if you will bow down to other gods, you'll be in trouble. Yes. So it's not. I don't know about you, but I usually thought and often still think of the idea of an all or nothing. It's either our God or Baal or Dagan or whoever it is. Baal Peor, which was the we're going to read about Baal Peor. We're going to read about Baal Peor in the next couple of weeks. All of these Ashtaroth, yes, all of these different gods, either or. In their society, that wasn't the case. And we learn about this in Sefer Shoftim. Remember what happened in Sefer Shoftim over and over again. You found that the Bnei Israel, they were loyal to Hashem, but on the side, they had their own other little gods. They had Ashtaroth, they had Baal, and they would hedge their bets. And that's what
they had their house gods. They had their house gods.
Yeah, that's what got up, as it were, got up HaKadosh Baruch Hu's nose. He's saying, no, you can't do that. It's me, I'm it. There is no other gods than me. And go back and have a look at the Ten Commandments, you naughty people, right? So this was very common. And that little bit that I just read you out from the Koran is very fundamental to our understanding of Jewish history, because this was the big chidush. This was the big thing that we changed. We changed from a polytheistic society where everybody could have their own God and recognize, yeah, okay, I support Man United, Lahavdil, but I recognize that, there are other teams, not Liverpool, of course, but there are other teams that okay, they're not as good as my team, but there are other teams that have got something to be said for them, right? Even Chelsea, right? But you can't say that. If you're a true believer, you've only got one God. This was the chidush that we had. You're only Hashem Echad. That is it. And so
we didn't have it for long.
What did you say about Paul?
I said we didn't have it for long. It's all the kings they had started with other gods as well.
Yeah, we didn't have it for long. We weren't very good at it, and we haven't been very good at it throughout history. And you could argue that today's gods that we are flirting with is Mammon, the god of money, the god of power, the god of all the other things that we are subservient to. No, you're right. We're not very good at it. So So if we go back to the question that arose here, why was Achish saying, where are we? Chai Hashem, verse 6, as the Lord lives. It's not all that unusual. He's being polite to David. He's recognizing that David's God is Hashem, but he's also saying something else there, isn't he? He's perhaps saying, you know what? I'm not quite as naive as you think. I know that your God is Hashem, who is the God of Israel. Maybe these fellows, these Sorei Philistine, maybe these Philistine officers are right. Maybe they've got a point.
He wanted David to denounce Hashem.
Yeah, and he doesn't. He's just, I think Achish is just perhaps just hedging his bets a little bit on there. It's an interesting expression. And then he says, this is this oath. He takes an oath and he says, look, I believe ki yashar ata. You have been upright. V'tov ba'inai. And you have been good in my eyes. Where have you heard that expression? Yashar v'tov. What are we asked to be done? What does God want of us? In Parshat Ve'et Hanan, I think it is, or it might be Akev. David will correct me.
Be in his image.
We want him to be, Hashem asks us to be Tov Ve'yashar Be'inei Hashem. We have to do that which is Tov Ve'yashar, good and upright in the eyes of Hashem. This is Achish using the same expression. Yashar ata v'tov be'inai. You've been good and upright in my eyes. You're a top fellow, as far as I'm concerned. When you've gone in and you've gone out, that's an expression for war in the camp. Kilo matzati b'cha ra'a. I've not found anything bad from you. Miyom ba'acha ilai, from the day you came to me, ad hayom hazeh. I have not found any. It's not me, Gov, he says. But be'enei hasranim lo tov ata. In the eyes of the sranim, which is another word for the Plishti generals, lo tov ata. You're not good. I'm sorry, mate. I think you're a top fellow, but they don't. So va'ata, and now shuv v'lech b'shalom. Go in peace. And don't do that which is evil in the eyes of these officers. In other words, he's giving them a bit of a warning here. He's saying, now there's a good boy. Go in peace. Go quietly. Don't cause any trouble. I know that you're a bit of a hothead and that you're a fierce warrior and that you're a gingy and you've got a bit of a temper. And we know all of that. He says, just go b'shalom, go quietly, don't cause trouble, don't do that which is bad in the eyes of these officers. But David is not finished yet. He's not going without a fight. Vayoma David al Achish, and David tries to stand his ground, and he says, Kimeh asiti, what have I done? Uma matzata ba'avdecha miyom asher hayita lefanecha. What have I done wrong? What have you found in your servant from now? I've not done anything wrong. That I can't come and battle with the enemies of Adoni Hamelech, my master, the king. That's a bit of an ambiguous statement, isn't it? Who is David referring to when he says that I am going to fight against the enemies of my master, the king? Who does he want Achish to think he means? Yeah, he thinks, Oivei, the enemies of my master, the king. Who is my master, the king?
Shaul.
No, Achish.
No,
He's saying to Achish, you are my master, the king, and I want to fight against the enemies of my master, the king. But he's very clever with his words, isn't he? Because he doesn't want to say an outright lie. Who is he really going to fight against if he was allowed to go into battle? he would be fighting against the Philistine, who are the enemies of my master, the king, Shaul. So he uses this very ambiguous and rather clever expression. Achish can take it in his naivety to mean himself. And David can later on, when he is challenged and says, well, you were going to be a traitor against the people. And he would say, no, I was going to be a fifth column. And I said so. I wanted to battle against the enemies of my master, the king, meaning Shaul. So it's a very clever little speech, this by David, but it doesn't work. Achish has his hands tied, to be honest. Achish clearly wanted David in the battle with him, but he had his hands tied. And it says, Vaya'an Achish, and Achish answered, Vayomer el David, and he said to David, Yadati, I know ki tovata, that you're a good fellow. Be'enai kemalach Elohim. You are like an angel of God. Now you know why I wanted to schlep out the word angel when I asked you what kind of being Satan was. Okay? It's a contrast. Satan and Malach Elohim are the opposite, aren't they? Satan is always portrayed as the negative, as we said before, to this negative being, and Malach is presented as a positive being. So what he's saying here is, David, I think you're an angel. Unfortunately, my officers think you're the devil. And there's nothing I can do about it. There's no point saying anything further to me, David. It's out of my hands. I think you're a malach, but the other fellows think you're a different type of malach. They think you're a Satan, and you're having to go into. You're not going. Sorry. They have said, Sarei Plishtim Amru. The Sarei Plishtim have said, Lo Yaleh Imanu Bamilchama. He will not go up into battle with us. Now, I asked you before why it said Lo Yered Imanu Bamilchama. See that? He says they will not go down into battle. And Paul quite rightly said, well, they're going into the valley. What are you going to do with that, Paul?
It's just an expression.
Well, you're right, of course, it's just an expression, but we're going to have to say that this one is, not only is he not going to go down into the valley with us, lo yalei money. He's not, and this is what Johnny said earlier on, he's not even going to go north with us on that journey that I showed you right at the beginning. Get rid of him right at the beginning, send him back to Ziklag. We don't even want him on the way going up north. So this is an even harsher expression than lo yared. Lo yared would be when they've already got there. Here they're saying lo yaleh. He's not even going up with the troops to be moved north. And so there is the end of the story. David's attempt to infiltrate into the Philistine army fails. Before we do the last two psukim, which I want to end with, I want to ask you this question. What do you think was in David's mind? Do you think that David wanted to join the Philistine in order to get rid of his enemy Shaul, and actually would have fought against Shaul? Or do you think that David was a loyal servant of Shaul who had a clever plan to infiltrate the enemy as a fifth column and to bring about the destruction of the Philistine and support his apparent nemesis Shaul? Okay, what do you think?
The second.
You think that he was you think that David's intentions were honourable?
I don't. Yes. I don't think that David,
Shaul.
even though he was a bit of a philanderer, I don't think they would have done such a nasty piece of work, because otherwise HaKadosh Baruch Hu would never have chosen him as the king after David.
Okay, who agrees with Philip?
Yeah, I think we'd like to believe Philip.
Oh, Peter, you sound a bit doubtful. Come on, let's hear your view.
David fluctuates. He fluctuates a lot, but I think we'd like to believe that he wanted to infiltrate with a view to defeating the Philistine. Yeah.
What's interesting is we don't know, do we? We're not told. We're not told. And it's almost a delicious question mark that hangs over. We'd like to believe what Philip said is correct. I think Philip's last sentence there is probably very telling. The fact that he got chosen to be David Melech Israel and is held up as being
it's too devious.
The best king that we ever had. I think we probably have to say that that's the case. But for me, there's just a little delicious question mark over there, which I just wanted to point out. David Marks had his hand up pretty quickly when I said, does he believe me? Does he believe Philip? You're pretty sure about that, David, yes?
Well, he's had opportunities to kill Shaul in the past, and
I think that's the clincher, isn't it? I think that's the clincher. He had two opportunities to kill Shaul that we know of and didn't do it. I think he has shown his loyalty to Shaul, and I think that I'm just being unnecessarily nasty towards David by raising the question mark, but it was just interesting. Let's do the last two psukim now and finish there, because we've done something we've never ever done before, and that's a whole chapter in one shiur. Granted, it's a short one. Okay, so he says, Va'ata, and now Hashkem baboker, arise early in the morning. Va'avdei Adonecha she'ba'u etcha, take all your people with you. V'hishkamtem baboker, another expression of getting up early in the morning. Va'or lachem, when it's light for you at first dawn. V'lechu, don't hang about, he says, do it straight away. And kachava, that's what happened. Vayashkein David went arose early in the morning. Hu v'anashav, him and his men. Lalechet baboker, to go in the morning, another expression of the morning. Lashuv al eretz plishtim, to go back to the land of the Plishtim. U plishtim alu Yisrael, and the Plishtim went on their journey up to there. Okay, so what have we got here in these last two psukim? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 expressions in 2 psukim of boker. What does that tell you?
That he wants to get rid of him.
Okay, yes, it does tell you that. What else does it tell you?
What to do
what is the boker? What is the morning? What is the dawn?
It's the light.
Johnny, can I say something here, please?
No, not yet. Hang on a minute. I'll come back to you. Philip, I'll come back to you in a minute.
To the military side of this.
I'll come back in a minute to you. I'll come back to you in a minute. I want to finish this point. So what does the dawn indicate?
A new day.
Yes, a new day and a new
opportunity.
A new chapter in history. The dawn of a new chapter. This is David's star rising. What is the opposite of that, of day?
Erev.
Night. Okay. Night indicates what? Evil, bad. Night indicates the end of an era. And now we will just look at what happened. Why chapter 28? I'll come to you in a minute, Philip. Why chapter 28 was put in the middle of chapter 27 and 29. Chapter 28 was the story of the witch of Endor. And what does the witch of Endor say? It says, tomorrow, Shaul, is going to be your last day on earth. You're going to die in battle, and it's going to be the end of your era. You are finished. You and your sons are going to die tomorrow. That's what it says. That's what Shmuel tells Shaul through the witch of Endor. And it says, you and your sons will be with me tomorrow in the afterworld. And what happened was, after that, the last verse of chapter 28, Vayochelu, they ate, Vayakumu, Vayelchu, Balayla Ahu. They got up and they went away on that night. Chapter 28 describes to us, I'm coming to you, Philip, put your hand down. I'm coming to you, I haven't forgotten. Right. Chapter 28 describes the end of the era of Shaul, and chapter 29, the end of chapter 29, is the complete contrast. Rather than the night of Shaul, who's going to die the next day, we have David arising early in the morning, and despite the fact that he's going back now, not going to enter the battle, this is the beginning of the dawn of the era of David. So you can see now why Tanakh wanted to put chapter 28 where it is. It doesn't make any sense otherwise, because 29 is a follow-on from 27. 28 is there to contrast the fortunes of Shaul, whose era and his life is coming to the end, with David, whose era is just beginning. The bright light, the dawn, the bright light of David is about to shine, and we'll see in chapter 30 and onwards, and into Shmuel Bet, the bright period, the era of David. So it's all very beautifully put together, as long as you can see the connections. So that's chapter 29. Right, Philip, you're on. Unmute. We can't hear you. Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. From a military point of view, very successful operations were carried out at dawn or a little after dawn. For instance, the Israeli air attack on Arab airfields at the beginning of the Six-Day War. I think it was 7:45 in the morning, if I'm not mistaken, early in the morning, because that was the moment that the enemy pilots were having breakfast, coffee, whatever, between flights. The same thing here. Successful attack, but also successful retreats happened early in the morning, because they weren't expected by the attackers. Also, if you look at a successful attack from the other side, the attack in the Yom Kippur War also started early in the morning. So in this case, David's retreat, which it is successful because it takes place in the morning.
Okay, interesting. October 7th also started early in the morning. So yeah, that's an interesting point. Thank you for that. Right, okay, I'm afraid I have to go. So no time for questions today. If you've got any, save them up for next week. Please God, next week we will start chapter 30 and see how the battle goes. We know how the battle goes because the Witch of Endor has told us, but we will see it in detail. Shavuot Tov, everyone.
Can I call you a second?
Thank you.
No, I'm running out. Call me in half an hour.
In half an hour, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Johnny.
Shavuot Tov.
Thanks.
Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov.